Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Bartleby the Scrivener, written by Herman Melville. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, right from the get-go with this work, we meet this lawyer. This lawyer, he works on Wall Street and he likes taking things easy. His philosophy in life is the easiest way is always the best way. He's the type of guy that you're never going to see in the newspaper. He's not going to make the headlines. He's not going to be the lawyer that's making noise in the courtroom. He's a paper pusher, so he works with contracts, legal documents. He works with rich people. That's how he makes his money. He's about paperwork and documents, legal documents, and he's a very safe man. And in my perspective, in my interpretation, I would even say that the lawyer of this work, he's somewhat of a coward because in this short story, when he gets into a conflict with Bartleby, he would rather move his office rather than face Bartleby, rather than get into a confrontation with Bartleby. He doesn't call the police. He just doesn't feel like getting into a situation or into an event with Bartleby that can be violent or confrontational in any way. So, in my perspective, I think that the lawyer that we were introduced to within this work, he's somewhat of a coward. He's somewhat he's hesitant to do anything that's hard or difficult or controversial. So we get introduced to the lawyer, and then after that, he tells us about his life and what he does and how his views on life. Then he tells us what he does for a living, and that that he has his office and that he has people working for him, and those are his scriveners. The scriveners, all that they do, they're kind of like human copy machines. So they take the legal documents and they copy them by hand. So the two people that he has working for him are Turkey and Nippers, and these two individuals are they make me laugh a lot while I was reading this work. They're very funny individuals. Turkey and Nippers, those are not the real names. Those are just the names that the lawyer gives to these individuals. There's also Ginger Nut. Ginger Nut, he is not a scrivener. He's just a child. He's a child apprentice. He's like 12 years old within this work, and he pretty much gets hired in this office to get the men stuff, to serve the men. Pretty much he'll go out and get them ginger nut cakes or serve the men in one way or another. And he's an apprentice. He's there to learn so that maybe one day he can break out and become a person in law, maybe be a judge, maybe be a lawyer of some sort. So that's Ginger Nut. That's why he works for this lawyer within this work. Right from the get-go, from my analysis, from my mind about this, what I'm getting from this work while I was reading it is that this is Wall Street. They're on Wall Street. This office is on Wall Street. You get the idea that these people, they're abiding by the rules and social norms of society. They're all like cogs in the machine because Turkey, Nippers, Ginger Nut, the lawyer, they're all doing what they're supposed to do. Get a job, work hard, do what you're supposed to do, be a cog in the machine. You're a cog in Wall Street because you're working hard. You're doing what you're supposed to do. Ginger Nut is a 12-year-old boy, and instead of thinking about playing and being with his friends, his has already, his family has already set him up in the legal office at 12 years old. Imagine learning the law and trying to work in the law at 12 years old. So it says a lot about the society and how working and being, you know, doing your part and following social norms in terms of education, in terms of progress, in terms of success. We're told by the lawyer that Nippers is younger than so Nippers is younger than the lawyer and Turkey, and he's kind of like a man that has ambition because he's somewhat of a young man, and he has ambition in life, and he's not really climbing that ladder. So you kind of see Ginger Nuts the youngest, then Nippers, then Turkey, then the lawyer, and all these men represent different parts of life and different parts of the cog on Wall Street, because they're all trying to succeed. They're all trying to just climb and to do their job and to fit their roles in society. And so much of this work is about conformity. For instance, the lawyer judges Turkey for his clothes and that sometimes he wears his clothes baggy. He praises Nippers for wearing good clothes and for dressing to the status of what someone in a law office should dress like. So all these things, clothing, how you speak, how you dress, how you work, all of that is being taken into consideration, and there's idea of social etiquette too that's playing out here. So from this work from the get-go, you kind of see how important social norms are, and what roles in society are acceptable, and what roles are not, and how your behavior plays into this. The other thing that we're told from the get-go is the role of how Turkey behaves. So Turkey works well in the morning, and after lunch he's horrible. And Nippers, he works horrible in the morning, and he works well in the afternoon. So Turkey and Nippers, again, these are nicknames for these men. They're like one. They're not one person. They're two separate individuals, but you get a full day of work out of them. That's what the lawyer gets out of them. For me, they're just comical relief in this work. We get an idea of what their work is, what they do, who they are. Turkey has a drinking problem. Nippers, he's just a young man that wants to be somewhere in life, and he just hasn't figured out exactly what that is yet. And Ginger Nut, he's just a young boy who's already in a law office learning about the law, which is quite significant, quite early, and it says a lot about that society. So at least that's my analysis, that's my interpretation of what's going on within this work while I was reading it. So the work goes on, and we learned that the lawyer, he needs more help. I mean, yes, he's getting work from Bartleby and work from Nippers, but he needs more help. He needs more work to get the work done and to get the copying done. These men, today we have copy machines. You just put whatever you want to copy in the machine, and then you copy it, and there's an exact replica. There's an exact replica. But back in the old days, within the time frame that this work was being written, you had to use your hand, copy legal documents by hand, and you had to hire people with good handwriting to come in and basically do the work. So Nippers and Ginger Nut, they were doing a good job, but the lawyer needs more help, so he hires Bartleby. Bartleby comes in, and he's just going off. He's writing, he's copying documents, legal documents, back and forth, front and back. He's just a machine. He's a perfect cog at first. His credentials are good, everything is wonderful, and the lawyer is happy. And then what happens is, the lawyer calls Bartleby in to help him, copy, or not copy, but to check his copy of the work he did, and Bartleby just says, I would prefer not to. I would prefer not to. And the whole work just becomes this whole thing of I would prefer not to. Anything you ask Bartleby, anything that he does, anything that people ask him to do, or the lawyer asks him to do, it's I would prefer not to, or I prefer not to, or some version of it. And this gets the lawyer pissed. This gets the lawyer mad, and he tries to fire Bartleby. But Bartleby's like, I would prefer not leave you. I would prefer not like he doesn't want to be fired. He doesn't want to be let go. He doesn't want to be disturbed. And the story goes on, and it comes to the point where he won't do anything for the lawyer. Anything that the lawyer asks Bartleby, Bartleby says no. He won't go to the post office. He won't work with the other copiers, the Scriveners. He won't check the paper. He won't do anything. And it comes to a point where his eyesight even gets bad, and he can't even copy anymore. So he comes to a point where he prefers not to copy. So as you can see, that the lawyer gets really mad, and he tries to fire Bartleby, but Bartleby says no, he prefers not to. We learned that Bartleby is living in this man's office, in this man's business, and he lives a very isolated, sad life. Now, again, here's another interpretation, another analysis here. Of this character of Bartleby. Bartleby, he's very isolated. He's very by himself. It's a very sad life, and man shouldn't be alone. People shouldn't be alone. We're meant to communicate with people. Bartleby has very poor communication skills. In this work, we learn that pretty much he has no family, or he won't tell us. He won't tell us anything about his family. When the lawyer asks, he won't tell us any information. And it's quite frustrating because you have this individual that won't work, that won't let you in, that won't tell you how you can help him. He leads an isolated life, and the lawyer later learns that Bartleby's, he learns that he's living in the office. He learns, he actually inspects Bartleby's desk, and in the desk, the lawyer finds a blanket. He finds the food that Bartleby eats. He finds just like enough, to understand. He finds enough in Bartleby's desk to understand that Bartleby has been living in the office, and this is a major red flag. It's a major red flag, and the lawyer is like, I have to fire this man. But again, in my perspective, in my interpretation, I think that the lawyer is a coward, and he doesn't want. So there's several things about this lawyer. He's a Christian. There's several points where he helps out Bartleby within this work because he's a Christian, because he talks about charity, he talks about God, he talks about Christianity, he talks about brotherhood, and treating others, loving others, and things like that. That all comes from his Christianity. So there are several points where he helps Bartleby because of that, because of his religion. There are points where I think he chooses not to confront Bartleby because, Bartleby comes off as a crazy man, as a possibly insane. He definitely has some mental problems. The lawyer actually goes around, in one scene within this work, the lawyer actually goes around the office. He asks Nippers and Turkey, what should I do with Bartleby? And they're like, he definitely has a problem. Maybe you should let him go. Different points, they have different opinions. Even Gingernut gets into this. Gingernut says he seems a little loony. There's a scene where Gingernut says because the lawyer even asked Gingernut, this 12-year-old, And Ginger Nut says, Bartleby seems a little loony, a little crazy, and the lawyer, he recognizes this at least a little bit, because he doesn't want to get too close to Bartleby. There's a scene where they're both alone in the office, and the lawyer remembers this case when somebody killed someone in an office, and that's quite shocking, because that scene where the lawyer is thinking about another case, a case where someone killed another person in an office because they had a conflict. That scene, that case comes into his mind when he's in the office alone with Bartleby, and they're kind of like discussing the fact that Bartleby's not working, he's not copying, he's not, going to the post office, he's not doing anything. He's living in this man's office, he's not paying rent, he's not being paid, he's just there, and he won't leave because I prefer not to. I would prefer not to. That's his famous phrase. That's Bartleby's famous phrase. I would prefer not to. So, the story goes on, and since our lawyer is a coward, our narrator is a coward, what he does is he doesn't call the police for Bartleby. He just takes all of his stuff, all of his furniture, and he moves to another office, and he leaves the office to Bartleby, and Bartleby just stays there until the next person comes along, the next tenant of this unit, this office comes along, and the lawyer's like, okay, I've got rid of Bartleby, he didn't follow me to my new office. Then the landlord of his old tenant comes to the lawyer and he says, why did you leave this man, in the old office? Like, we need you to get rid of him. And the lawyer's like, I have no affiliation with this man. I hired him to do some work, some copying, and he decided I would prefer not to. He preferred not to work. He preferred not to do anything, not go to the post office, not correct his own or check his own work, not to, I would prefer not to. That's his answer to everything. And the lawyer just had enough and just quit and just leaves. And so ultimately what happens is they call the police on Bartleby. The tenants of the old building and the landlord, they all pretty much just send Bartleby away. He gets sent to jail. And then the lawyer kind of follows him to jail. The lawyer, and throughout the work, the lawyer does everything. Coming from his Christian side, the lawyer tries to give Bartleby money. He tries to give him a severance package. He tries to help him get back home. He tries to help him find his family. He tries to help him find a new job. He even offers Bartleby to come stay with him at his home, and Bartleby has his answer. I would prefer not to. I prefer not to. I prefer not to. I would prefer not to. I would prefer something not to. It just never, ever stops. It got so bad to the point where everybody within this lawyer's office, they started saying prefer. Or would you prefer this paper or this paper? Would you prefer this or that? Would you prefer? And like the lawyer starts saying prefer. The Turkey and Nipper start using prefer, and it just becomes this mess and this it made me laugh when Nippers and Turkey starts using I would prefer and I prefer or whatever. They start using in different senses. It made me laugh so much. So Bartleby, he's in jail. There's a grub man there. Lawyer did everything that he could to not let Bartleby go to jail. Like before all of this happened, before he got arrested, before the authorities got involved, none of that worked. And in the jail, the lawyer goes to Bartleby, and the lawyer actually pays the grub man to feed Bartleby good meals, and Bartleby just prefers not to eat. He prefers to just stare at a wall. And, you need to eat. You just need to eat. If you don't eat, you die. It's not a matter of preference. I mean, I guess you can prefer not to eat. But If you prefer not to eat, that's just suicide. I mean, you're going to starve to death and by your own choice. So Bartleby just dies, and the lawyer comes in, and he's like the only person there for Bartleby in his dying hour. Um, yeah, yeah, that's the story of Bartleby, and the lawyer even had to go in and shut Bartleby's eyes, like how in movies, how when somebody dies, they die with their eyes open. Well, the lawyer had to go in and close Bartleby's eyelids. And then the lawyer goes on with his life. I mean, this is just story. There's just so much within it. I think it says a lot about Wall Street and capitalism and how we're all cogs in the machine. And if you don't fit within the machine, if the cog is not working, you pretty much get tossed aside. And if you don't conform to the rules and laws of society, you just get tossed away. And Bartleby, since he would prefer not to do anything, and just stay in this building, the landlord was like, okay, I prefer you to be taken by the authorities, and that's what happens to Bartleby. At the end, we do get a little rumor about that, kind of like revealed to us a little bit more about Bartleby and his past. We learned that Bartleby worked at the dead letter office in Washington, and that rumor tells us this. The lawyer gets this rumor. In the rumor, it says that, well, the rumor just pretty much says that Bartleby used to work at the dead letter office in Washington, and due to a change in the administration, Bartleby was let go. Now, when we're thinking about a dead letter office, especially when the rumor says, the rumor talks about Washington. I'm thinking about from my perspective, in my interpretation, in my analysis. You're thinking about Washington D.C. You're thinking about possibly the White House's. It's connected to the White House. It's connected to the presidency, because it says due to a change in the administration, Bartleby was let go. So it seems that if the rumor is true, Bartleby worked in the White House, or worked for the White House in this dead letter office, and he had to read all of these horrible dark letters about maybe people dying, sons dying, daughters dying, letters that could have helped people financially that never got to them, letters of hope that never got to their recipients, letters of praise, letters of encouragement that never found that never found the person that they were supposed to go to, or the person never received the letters. And Bartleby had to read all of them and destroy all of them and burn all of them, because this is where letters go to die. It's the dead letter office. And I think working in a place of gloom and a place that's so grim, and messages like that probably had a huge effect on Bartleby and his mental state. There's several. If you analyze this from a psychological point of view, I'm not a psychologist, but I would imagine that there's several mental illnesses, mental disabilities, or probably several. I mean, definitely depression. Definitely, you have to say that Bartleby was depressed, but there's several. His mental state is in question here. That has a huge effect on Bartleby and his life. Also, being in such a place, and we know for a fact that Bartleby probably worked in this dead letter office for probably decades, because his vision got really bad, and we know this because the lawyer says that his eyes got so bad that he couldn't copy anymore. So that means Bartleby's eyes got so bad that he couldn't write by hand, so he couldn't look at the legal documents and copy them by hand. So that means his vision got really bad. So that meant he probably spent decades within this dead letter office reading these letters. And then now when he starts working for the lawyer, after maybe a couple of weeks or a certain amount of time, um, his eyes got so bad that he couldn't copy. So those decades, that long amount of time that he spent in the dead letter office, it affected him physically because of his eyes. It affected him mentally, and it probably killed his spirit. It probably killed his personality because you saw the darkness. You just kept on reading day in and day out, year in and year out, all these dark and depressing and hopeless letters. Um, and again, I mean, most humans, we spend all of our lives at work, and our work definitely has a huge effect in our lives, and it says a lot about our identities. Um, so the fact that this man worked in a place called the Dead Letter Office says a lot. Uh, he is a man who prefers nothing that worked in a dead place. So he was literally, from my perspective, or from my interpretation, he is a man that he was a dead man walking, basically. And that says a lot about capitalism and the world that he lived in, especially Wall Street. I think there's some commentary here, maybe on Wall Street, because on Wall Street we know that it's efficiency. Wall Street is, you have all these intelligent people working in powerful offices, working in money, working in business, working in really important sectors of finance, banking, economy, and all types of fields. And especially on Wall Street, everything is taken seriously, and there's no time for lollygagging lollygagging and merriment on Wall Street. Wall Street is very serious, very focused, or at least that's the notion of Wall Street in capitalism. So, it says a lot about maybe Bartleby. It was an environment that was cold and dreary and always focused, and there is some truth to that. And maybe there was no time for human bonding and human. Because okay, think about the lawyer's office. You have a 12-year-old already trying to learn the law so that he can be successful. You have Nippers, who's kind of like ambitious, but he's not going anywhere so far. You have Turkey, who's an old man that won't give up or that won't hang up the boots. You have the lawyer who's reached his success and he's making his money, but he's kind of like found a placeholder for himself or a pigeonhole for himself because he knows how to make his money. He knows how to stay out of trouble. And again, he tells us that the easiest way is always the best way. And especially the way that he's lived his life, the easiest way has always been fruitful for him. So we can see just in the lawyer's office, our narrator's office, there's a lot going on in terms of success, progress, moving forward, upward mobility. And Bartleby didn't fit that. He was a cog in the office that didn't work. And since he didn't work, since he wasn't performing well on Wall Street, the lawyer just ripped the carpet from underneath his feet. Literally, the lawyer just literally took the carpet and all of the furniture and left Bartleby. And I feel like Wall Street I've never been on Wall Street or been a part of Wall Street, but I think that's what Wall Street is. If you're not performing, if you're not focused, if you're not efficient, if you're not doing your part as a cog in the machine, you get left behind. And the Lord literally just leaves Bartleby behind and just rips out the carpet and moves to another office and and allows the legal proceedings to take care of Bartleby. No matter, even though that the lawyer had some charity or some Christian beliefs or some religious beliefs of his own, tried to help Bartleby every way that he could. I think ultimately, when you go face to face with Wall Street or capitalism like Bartleby and decide not to participate in it, you get left behind, or you get tossed aside as a cog that won't work. Because in the world today, in the capitalism mindset, you have to work, you have to fit within within the construct, within the machine of society. And if you don't adhere, if you don't conform, you just don't end up in a good place. And the thing that probably killed Bartleby was those dead letters. I'm thinking that's my interpretation is that the the darkness that he was that he saw, the darkness that he read in those letters had an effect on him, his mental state, his outlook on the world. And then what he witnessed on Wall Street and the isolation that he faced on Wall Street just, placed the final nail on the coffin for Bartleby. And then he just preferred not to do anything. He gets sent to jail, and then he just dies in there because he prefers not to eat. I would prefer not, I would prefer nothing. I would prefer not to anything basically for Bartleby. I would prefer not to for everything, and ultimately he dies looking at a wall. And at least he had the lawyer there to close his eyes for him. And that's the end of Bartleby. And overall, within the story, you're getting a whole host of things. I mean, from the effect of capitalism, the effect of what isolation can do to you, and how not having anyone to communicate with can lead you into a world of nothingness. The effect of upward mobility. I mean, look at the lawyer's office. It's literally a model of hierarchy. You have the lawyer on top, then I would say turkey, then I would say nippers, and I would say ginger nut. They're all working cogs, and they're working, they're working enough to fit the bill. Bartleby tried to come in, or he tries to fit in for a while, but he wasn't the right piece, or he was a piece that just malfunctioned, and he was tossed into the jail. And I guess that's true for all walks of life, not just on Wall Street. Wherever you live in America, if you don't fit the bill, if you're not, a piece in the machine, you just get left behind. And sometimes it might come to the fact that they just rip the carpet from underneath your feet like they did Bartleby. So that's my interpretation. That's my summary and interpretation of this work. I mean, there's so much more that you can pull from this work. It's a very famous work, as we all know. That I would prefer not to will just ring in the history of literature forever. Yeah. Well, that's my summary again. That's my summary. That's my analysis. My interpretation of this work. Now I would prefer to end this video. So I'll see you guys in the next one.